The old hotel on the edge of town had been abandoned for decades, its windows boarded, its halls filled with dust and silence. Locals whispered of strange lights in the windows and voices drifting through the night. One autumn evening, two friends dared each other to stay there until morning. They carried flashlights, laughing as they pushed open the heavy doors. By dawn, the hotel was silent again, except for the faint sound of whispers echoing from its empty rooms. The Briarcliff Hotel had once been the pride of the town. Built in the 1920s, its grand lobby had welcomed wealthy travelers, and its ballroom had echoed with laughter and music. But after a fire gutted part of the building in the 1970s, it closed its doors for good. For decades, it stood empty, its windows boarded, its halls left to rot. Locals crossed the street rather than walk too close, whispering that the hotel was haunted. Some claimed they'd seen shadows moving behind the broken glass. Others swore they'd heard piano music drifting from the empty ballroom. No one dared step inside until Liam and Daniel. The two friends were 19, restless and eager for a thrill. On a cool October night, they stood outside the hotel's iron gates, flashlights in hand. Liam grinned, his voice full of bravado. "We stay until morning, then we can say we proved the stories wrong." Daniel hesitated, his breath clouding in the air. "What if they're not just stories?" Liam laughed. "Ghosts aren't real, it's just an old building." Still, Daniel's eyes lingered on the dark silhouette of the hotel. Its cracked windows and scorched walls seemed to watch them, waiting. They pushed open the doors, the hinges groaning like a warning. Inside, the lobby stretched out in ruin. Grand chandeliers lay shattered on the floor, the marble cracked and coated in dust. Their flashlights revealed faded murals peeling from the walls and staircases that spiraled into shadow. "Creepy," Daniel muttered, his voice echoing too loudly. "Creepy is the point," Liam replied, stepping deeper into the room. They wandered the first floor, their lights cutting through the dark. Old furniture lay overturned, the ballroom's floor warped from water damage. A grand piano sat in one corner, its keys yellowed with age. Liam pressed one experimentally. The note rang out, startling them both, sharp and too clear for an instrument left to rot. Daniel flinched. "Don't do that." Liam smirked. "Relax, it's just sound." But as they moved on, Daniel swore he heard another note ring out, this time without Liam's touch. He glanced back, the hair on his arms rising, but the piano sat still in the shadows. Upstairs, the hallways were lined with doors, most of them broken or hanging open. Faded numbers still clung to some. The carpet was moth-eaten, their footsteps muffled in the dust. Liam chose a room halfway down the hall. Inside, the wallpaper peeled in long strips, the bed frame rusted and collapsed. "Perfect spot for the night," he said, dropping his backpack. Daniel set his pack down reluctantly, glancing at the window. Outside, the town lights twinkled faintly, distant and unreachable. He muttered, "I don't like this." "Exactly why it's fun," Liam said, stretching out on the floor. They sat in silence for a while, their flashlights propped against the wall. The quiet was heavy, broken only by the faint groans of the old building settling. Then came the sound, a whisper. Faint, soft, just outside their door. Daniel stiffened. "Did you hear that?" Liam sat up, frowning. "Probably wind." But the whisper came again. Closer. This time both of them heard it. Words, broken and indistinct, as if spoken through water. Daniel grabbed his flashlight, aiming it at the door. The crack beneath glowed faintly, not with their light, but something pale and shifting. Liam whispered, "There's someone in the hall." The whispering stopped. Silence pressed against the door, and then 3 slow knocks. The knocks echoed through the ruined hotel, deep and deliberate, rattling the frame of the door. Liam and Daniel froze, their breaths caught in their throats. Daniel's voice shook. "Someone's out there." Liam tried to sound calm, but his whisper cracked. "It's just another explorer. Someone like us." But even as he said it, he knew he was lying. No one else came here. Daniel raised his flashlight toward the door, the pale glow beneath it still flickering. The whispering resumed, soft and broken, as though voices crowded together on the other side. Neither of them could make out the words. Liam swallowed hard, forcing himself to move. He crept toward the door, every step deliberate, his shoes crunching on the carpet fibers. Daniel hissed, "Don't open it." "I just want to see." Liam pressed his ear against the wood. At first he heard nothing but the pounding of his own heart, then breath, cold, steady, inches from his ear. He jerked back, stumbling, his face pale. The door handle twitched. Both boys backed away, flashlights trembling in their hands. The handle twisted slowly, as though someone on the other side was testing it. The door shuddered but didn't open. It was swollen shut from years of decay. Then came the laughter. A child's laugh, high-pitched and brittle, carried down the hallway. It echoed unnaturally, bouncing off the walls, closer than it should have been. Daniel's stomach dropped. There are kids here. The laugh turned into a chorus, dozens of voices, layered and distorted, rising in pitch until it became a shrill scream. The boys clapped their hands over their ears, backing into the far corner of the room. The sound cut off instantly, leaving silence so heavy it rang in their heads. For a long moment, neither moved. Finally, Liam whispered, "We're not staying in here. We need to find another room." They gathered their packs, hands shaking, and shoved the door open with all their strength. The hallway stretched before them, lined with broken doors, the air colder now. Their flashlights cut through the dust, illuminating scraps of torn carpet and peeling wallpaper. At first it was silent. Then the doors along the hall began to rattle, one after another, as if something moved behind each one. Daniel's breath came fast. "They're all occupied." "Keep moving," Liam muttered, his voice hoarse. They hurried down the hall, the rattling growing louder, following them. At the far end, they spotted a grand staircase leading upward, its banister broken, steps coated in dust. Without a word, they rushed toward it. The second floor was worse. The air was thick with mildew, and the wallpaper was darker, stained with shapes that looked disturbingly like handprints. Their beams caught faded portraits on the walls, guests who had stayed there long ago. Yet the faces were wrong, blurred, smudged, eyes scratched out. Daniel whispered, "Why would anyone do this?" But before Liam could answer, one of the portraits shifted. Its head turned slowly, following them with eyeless sockets. Daniel screamed, stumbling backward. The portraits all shifted in unison, their blank faces turning toward the boys. The whispering returned, this time inside the walls themselves. The words were clearer now. "Stay, stay." Liam grabbed Daniel's arm and dragged him down the corridor. Their flashlights flickered, cutting out for seconds at a time. In those moments of darkness, they felt movement around them, brushing against their shoulders, cold air against their necks. When the lights steadied again, they were standing at the entrance to the ballroom. Its double doors hung open, and beyond them lay a cavernous space filled with broken chandeliers and warped floorboards. At the far end, a grand piano sat in a pool of pale moonlight. Its keys began to play on their own. The first note rang sharp and cold, echoing through the cavernous ballroom. Dust swirled in the pale moonlight that spilled through a broken skylight, catching in the air like smoke. Liam and Daniel froze in the doorway, their flashlights trembling in their hands. The piano played again, 2 keys this time, then 3. A melody formed, uneven and wrong, as if invisible hands were fumbling with forgotten notes. Daniel's voice cracked. "We should leave, right now." But Liam stepped forward, drawn by something he couldn't explain. "It's just a trick, maybe the wind, or something mechanical." Daniel grabbed his sleeve. "No, listen, that's not the wind." The melody continued, louder now, filling the ballroom. As they moved deeper inside, their lights revealed long tables still covered in moldy cloths, broken chairs stacked haphazardly, and faded banners that had once celebrated some long-forgotten gala. The piano's keys gleamed in the moonlight, pristine against the rot. They reached the center of the room. The music stopped. For a moment the silence was worse. Then from the shadows along the balcony above came the sound of footsteps. Dozens of them, synchronized, circling. Daniel aimed his flashlight upward, the beam slicing through the dark. Empty railings, broken chairs, nothing there. Liam's hand shook as he whispered, "Someone's watching us." The piano thundered. All keys struck at once, a deafening crash that rattled the chandeliers overhead. Dust rained from the ceiling. The boys stumbled back, shielding their heads. When the sound faded, something new appeared. On the floor before the piano, letters were carved into the wood, fresh, jagged, glowing faintly in the moonlight. "Stay the night." Daniel's breath hitched. "No, no, I'm not." Before he could finish, the balcony groaned. A figure stepped into the moonlight. It was tall, impossibly thin, its skin pale and stretched tight. Its face was obscured by shadow, but its head tilted unnaturally, like it was studying them. Another figure appeared beside it, then another. Soon the balcony was lined with them, dozens of tall, pale figures, standing perfectly still, their heads cocked at identical angles. Daniel whispered, "We're trapped." The piano began again, playing the same uneven melody. With each note, the figures leaned closer, their movements jerky and wrong, like marionettes tugged by invisible strings. "Run," Liam muttered. They bolted for the doors, flashlights bouncing. But as they reached the threshold, the doors slammed shut with a force that shook the walls. The locks clicked, sealing them inside. The piano's music swelled, frantic now, keys hammering as though struck by unseen fists. The figures on the balcony twitched, jerking closer to the edge. Daniel pounded on the doors, screaming, "Let us out, please!" But Liam's light caught something on the far wall. Another door, half broken, leading into a service corridor. "There!" he shouted. They sprinted, the piano's cacophony following them. The service door resisted for a moment, then gave way under their combined weight. They stumbled into a narrow passage lined with pipes and rusted storage shelves. Behind them, the music stopped. The silence was total until the whispering returned. This time it was clear. "Stay, stay." The words came from the corridor itself, bouncing from the walls, closing in from every direction, and then faintly, from just behind them, came the sound of footsteps, slow, deliberate, impossibly close. The footsteps were steady, deliberate, each one echoing louder in the narrow service corridor. Liam whipped his flashlight toward the sound, the beam cutting across rusted pipes and peeling paint. But the hallway stretched empty behind them. Daniel's chest heaved. "Something's following us." "Then we don't stop," Liam said, grabbing his arm. They hurried deeper into the passage, their lights flickering against warped walls and rusted door frames. The corridor bent unnaturally, twisting back on itself like a maze. Every turn seemed wrong, every door locked or sealed with boards. The footsteps continued, never quickening, never slowing, always just behind them. At one point, Daniel stopped, his fear boiling into anger. He spun, shouting into the darkness. "What do you want from us?" For the first time, the footsteps ceased. The silence stretched painfully. Then, softly, a voice whispered from the dark, "Stay." Daniel staggered backward, his face pale. "It's talking to us." Liam pulled him forward. "Ignore it. Keep moving." They burst into a storage room filled with broken furniture and shattered mirrors. Dust clung to every surface, disturbed only by their frantic movements. In the corner, an old housekeeping cart stood with rusted cleaning supplies still inside. Daniel's light caught the nearest mirror. His breath hitched. "Liam." The reflection wasn't theirs. In the glass, two boys stood, but their faces were smooth and pale, their eyes glowing faintly. The figures tilted their heads in unison, mimicking every movement, but slightly delayed. Liam's stomach lurched. He smashed the mirror with his flashlight, shards scattering across the floor. But in every shard, the reflections continued to stare, glowing faintly in the dark. The footsteps resumed. This time, they came from all directions, the ceiling, the walls, the floor, surrounding them. Daniel whimpered, "We're not getting out." "We will," Liam insisted, though his voice wavered. He shoved open a door on the far side of the room. It groaned and gave way, revealing a grand stairwell spiraling upward. They climbed, their footsteps frantic against the dust-choked carpet. The air grew colder with each step, their breaths visible in the faint glow of their lights. The higher they went, the stronger the whispers became. "Stay, stay with us." The third floor opened into a long hallway lined with guest rooms. The doors were numbered, though the numbers repeated, 201, 201, etched over and over, as if the same room stretched endlessly. Liam's hand shook as he tried one door. It creaked open to reveal a bedroom frozen in time. The bed was neatly made, though the sheets were yellowed. A suitcase sat on the dresser, half unpacked, but the air was wrong, too still, too cold. Daniel stepped inside, shining his light across the room. His beam landed on the suitcase. Carved deep into the leather were fresh words, "You never leave." The door slammed shut behind them. Daniel spun, pounding on it. "It won't open." The whispering grew louder, the sound swelling until it rattled the furniture. The bed creaked, sagging under unseen weight. Slowly the sheets pulled back. indentations forming, as though someone invisible lay down. Liam aimed his flashlight at the bed. The indentation deepened, and faint handprints pressed into the pillow. The whispering overlapped, dozens of voices chanting now. "Stay, stay, stay." The mirror above the dresser cracked, spiderwebbing across its surface. From within the cracks, pale hands began to push outward, forcing their way through the glass. Daniel screamed, dragging Liam toward the window. It was boarded shut, but daylight flickered faintly through the cracks. "We have to break it," he shouted. They hurled their weight against the boards. The wood groaned, splintering. The chanting rose to a fever pitch. On the final blow, the boards snapped free. Cold night air rushed in, carrying with it a chorus of whispers that seemed to follow them even outside. But as they leaned out, hearts racing with hope, they froze. The view beyond the window was not the town. It was the hotel lobby, waiting below them, as if they had never left. The sight froze them in place. Where the streets of town should have been, the view beyond the window showed the Briarcliff Hotel's lobby. Dusty chandeliers, broken marble floors, the boarded entrance doors. It was as if the hotel itself had folded in on them, trapping them in its walls. Daniel staggered back, shaking his head violently. "No, that's impossible. We're on the 3rd floor, that's the lobby downstairs." Liam pressed his forehead to the cracked glass, his breath fogging against it. The image didn't waver. It wasn't a trick of light. The hotel had rearranged itself. "We're never getting out," Daniel whispered, his voice breaking. Liam grabbed his shoulders, forcing him to focus. "Don't say that. We're alive, and if we're alive, there's a way out." But the words felt hollow. The whispering returned, curling through the room like smoke. This time, the words were unmistakable. "Stay. One stays." The broken mirror rattled. Its shards, scattered across the floor, began to tremble and shift, sliding toward one another. The pieces reassembled into a single pane, though the cracks still marred its surface. Daniel's flashlight beam caught their reflections once again. Only this time, the images didn't mimic them. The figures in the glass stood perfectly still, their faces pale and smooth, their glowing eyes locked on the boys. Slowly, both reflections raised their hands and pointed toward Daniel. His knees buckled. "Why me?" Liam shoved the dresser against the mirror, smashing it into fragments once more. "Don't look at them," he shouted, his voice shaking. The boards on the window slammed shut again, sealing them inside. Dust rained from the ceiling as the walls groaned, the entire room pulsing like a heartbeat. Desperate, they threw open the door and rushed back into the hallway. But the corridor had changed. Every door now bore the same number, 302. The numbers glowed faintly, carved fresh into the wood. Daniel's breath came in gasps. "It's marking us." "Keep moving," Liam urged. "Don't stop." They sprinted down the endless hallway, their flashlights bouncing wildly. Doors rattled as they passed, unseen hands pounding from within. Whispers chased them, overlapping voices repeating the same phrase. "One stays, one stays." Finally, they stumbled into another stairwell. This one spiraled upward into darkness, no end in sight. They climbed, legs burning, hearts pounding. The whispers followed, growing louder with every step. After what felt like hours, they reached a landing with a single door. Carved into its wood were words that made their blood run cold. "Room 301. Liam hesitated. "We don't go in," but the stairwell behind them groaned. Figures emerged from the shadows, tall and pale, their faceless heads tilted, their glowing eyes fixed on the boys. The stairwell filled with them, blocking the way back. With no choice, Liam shoved the door open. They stumbled into a room that looked impossibly pristine. The bed was neatly made, the lamps glowed faintly, and the air smelled faintly of smoke and perfume. It was as though the room had been waiting for them. On the nightstand sat a guestbook, its leather cover cracked with age. Daniel opened it with trembling hands. The pages were filled with names, written in spidery ink. Each one had the same note beside it, "Stayed." The last page was blank. 2 empty lines waited, their flashlights flickered, and when they steadied again, new words appeared in fresh ink. Liam Carter, Daniel Reeves. Daniel dropped the book, his face pale. "It's recording us." The lights dimmed. The whispers swelled, filling the room. And then, from the corner, a shape began to rise from the shadows. It was a man, or what had once been one. His suit was tattered, his skin grey, his face blurred, and half erased like the portraits in the hallway. He straightened slowly, his mouth moving with the chorus of voices. "One stays." The figure stepped fully into the lamplight, its body stiff, its movements unnatural. The blurred face flickered as though it couldn't decide what it should look like. One moment it was featureless, the next it seemed to form hollow eyes and a mouth stretched wide in a silent scream. Daniel pressed himself against the wall, his voice barely a whisper. "What is that?" Liam forced himself to stand between Daniel and the figure, though his knees trembled. "It's the hotel," he said, his voice hoarse. "It's what keeps everyone here." The figure tilted its head sharply, bones cracking with the motion. It raised one grey hand and pointed directly at Daniel. The whispers roared in unison. "One stays, one stays." Daniel shook his head violently. "No, I'm not staying here, I won't." The guest book on the nightstand snapped open on its own. Fresh ink appeared on the blank line beneath their names. Slowly, letters formed. "Daniel Reeves, stays." Daniel screamed, slamming the book shut, but the ink bled through the cover, glowing faintly in the dark. The figure stepped closer. With each movement, the room decayed. The lamps flickered out, the wallpaper peeled in seconds, the bed sagged into rot. The pristine illusion collapsed until the room was as ruined as the rest of the hotel. Liam grabbed Daniel's hand, yanking him toward the door. But when he pulled it open, the hallway beyond was gone. In its place stretched an endless void, a corridor of shadows with no floor, no walls, just blackness. The whispers poured from the darkness, urging, "Stay." Daniel panicked, thrashing, "We're trapped." The figure moved faster now, its jerking strides closing the distance, its blurred face split into a wide grin, glowing faintly as though carved into its flesh. Liam spotted the window. Unlike the one in the last room, this one was unboarded, cracked glass letting in faint moonlight. "The window," he shouted. They rushed toward it. The figure lunged, its hands clawing through the air. Liam shoved Daniel forward. Together they hurled their weight against the glass. It shattered, shards exploding outward into the night. Cold air rushed in. For the first time they saw the town lights glittering far below. Relief surged through Liam until he realized how far down it was. "We'll die if we jump," Daniel gasped. "We'll die if we stay," Liam snapped. The figure shrieked, a sound like tearing metal, its faceless crowd joining in from the walls themselves. Pale arms burst from the plaster, clawing toward the boys, grasping for their ankles. Liam didn't think. He shoved Daniel through the broken window. His friend screamed as he vanished into the night air. The whispers stopped instantly. The room fell silent, except for Liam's ragged breathing. He staggered to the window, looking down, but there was nothing. No sign of Daniel, no body, no impact. Only fog curling over the ground. The guest book on the nightstand snapped open again. Fresh ink filled the page. Daniel Reeves stayed. Liam stumbled back, his face pale. No, he didn't. He escaped. The figure turned its blurred face toward him. Slowly, deliberately, it raised its hand and pointed again, this time at Liam. Fresh ink bled across the final line. "Liam Carter." The whispers began anew, louder than ever. "One remains." The air in the room thickened, pressing against Liam's chest like a weight. The broken window no longer showed the town below. It had sealed itself, the glass whole again, moonlight gone. The only light came from the faint glow of the guest book, its pages pulsing like a heartbeat. Liam backed away, shaking his head. "No, you already took him. You already chose." The faceless figure twitched, jerking closer, each movement punctuated by the cracking of unseen bones. Its blurred features stretched into something like a grin. The whispers rose, curling into one unified command. "Stay." Liam spun, yanking at the door, but the handle burned ice-cold against his palm. It refused to turn. The wallpaper peeled away, revealing more words carved deep into the plaster. "No one leaves." His flashlight flickered, cutting in and out. In each burst of darkness, the room changed. 1 second, the bed was rotted and broken. The next, it was neatly made with crisp white sheets, as though prepared for a guest. Each flicker forced a new version of the room. Decay, perfection, ruin, renewal, cycling endlessly, as if the hotel couldn't decide what it was. Liam's voice cracked. "Why us? Why anyone?" From the corner, the faceless man's body jolted unnaturally, his head tilted back, and in a chorus of voices he answered, "Because someone must." The guest book's pages flipped violently on their own, stopping on the last line. "Liam Carter?" The ink bled outward, forming jagged letters. "Stay." The walls groaned, bulging outward as pale hands pushed through the plaster. fingers clawed, reaching toward him, brushing his skin with icy tips. Liam staggered back, his flashlight beam catching the mirror above the dresser. He froze. In the cracked glass, his reflection was gone. In its place stood Daniel, face smooth, eyes glowing faintly. Daniel raised a pale hand and pointed at Liam from inside the glass. Liam screamed, hurling the flashlight. The mirror shattered, shards scattering across the floor. But in every shard, Daniel's glowing eyes remained, watching. The whispers reached a deafening pitch. "Stay, stay, stay." The figure advanced, its blurred grin widening, arms outstretched. Liam stumbled onto the bed, clutching the rusted frame like an anchor. His body shook as the guestbook on the nightstand began to smoke, the letters etching themselves deeper into the page. He closed his eyes, whispering, "I won't let you have me." The bed sagged violently, the mattress collapsing inward as if swallowing him whole. The air turned frigid. He felt hands wrap around his wrists and ankles, unseen but solid, pinning him down. Liam thrashed, screaming, but the shadows smothered his voice. The faceless figure loomed over him, its hand pressing against his chest. Cold seeped into his heart, his vision blurred, the edges darkening. The last sound he heard before everything went black was the closing of the guestbook. When the silence returned, the room was empty. On the final page, 2 names glowed faintly in the dark. Daniel Reeves stayed. Liam Carter stayed. The whispers faded into nothing. The Briarcliff Hotel had claimed them both. The hotel was silent once more. Dust drifted lazily in the stagnant air, the lamps on the nightstand glowing faintly before sputtering out. The guestbook sat closed, its cover cracked, its pages heavy with new names. Liam Carter, Daniel Reeves, both marked with the same word, stayed. But the Briarcliff Hotel never remained empty for long. Days later, a pair of teenagers from town crept past the rusted gates. They had heard the stories, 2 boys who dared to stay the night and were never seen again. Some called it nonsense, just another ghost story. But curiosity was stronger than fear. They found the front doors ajar, the grand lobby waiting. The chandeliers hung broken, the marble cracked, yet the air felt expectant. They stepped inside, flashlights trembling in their hands. The sound of faint piano notes drifted from the ballroom. Neither of them spoke. They followed the melody, their footsteps echoing against the high ceilings. The ballroom looked just as it always had. Dusty tables, broken chairs, the grand piano gleaming unnaturally in the moonlight. On the lid of the piano, fresh carvings gleamed. "Stay with us." The teens exchanged a glance. One of them laughed nervously, probably just vandals, but then the balcony groaned above them. Dozens of pale figures leaned forward, faceless heads tilting in unison, their glowing eyes locked onto the intruders. The piano crashed all its keys at once, the sound rattling the chandeliers. The teenagers bolted, their flashlights cutting wildly through the dark. But the doors of the hotel had already sealed shut. In the lobby, the guestbook stirred. Its pages flipped on their own, stopping at the last entry. New lines etched themselves beneath Liam and Daniel's names, waiting, blank. The whispers returned, soft and eager. 2 more, 2 more. The hotel had claimed its price, but it was never satisfied. It would always demand more, and outside, townspeople swore they saw lights flickering in the windows again. Some said they heard laughter carried on the wind. Others swore they heard voices calling from the rooms above. "Stay, stay with us." The Briarcliff Hotel still stood, rotting on the edge of town, its hunger eternal. The Briarcliff Hotel still looms at the edge of town, its boarded windows hiding whispers that refuse to die. Locals warn that those who enter never return, their names etched forever in a book no one can find. Liam and Daniel were the latest, but not the last. Some nights, pale lights glow in the windows, and the faint sound of a piano drifts on the wind. The hotel waits patiently, because sooner or later someone else will stay.